This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I am your host, Darren McKee, and with me, we'll say as usual, are Adam Gardner.
Hey, what's up, Cuboids?
Christina Roach.
Hey, everyone.
And producer Pat.
Hi, guys.
We have a great show for you today. Pat is going to give us another wonderful game of Name That. But first, I'm going to talk to you about uncertainty and artificial intelligence risk.
Buckle in, everyone.
Yeah, maybe. You may have noticed that there has been a lot of AI news lately. AI stands for artificial intelligence, by the way. Ranging from impressive new developments to concerns about AI governance. What has stood out most to me were the articles and discussions about AI risk, which is a difficult and complicated thing to think about. My segment today will be to share some thoughts and discuss with my co-hosts what might be reasonable approaches to the topic. Now, note, this segment is not actually a detailed examination of the arguments for whether advanced AI is a risk, but rather a brief exploration of recent events and how we might think about those issues separate from the arguments themselves. So I understand it's a bit of a different focus than usual, but we like science and critical thinking here, so why not? I think there's value nonetheless. So first, what do I mean about AI risk? In this context, I don't mean the risk of algorithmic bias that causes harm, or generative AI, like your language models and ChatGPT or your image generators, creating misinformation, or employment displacement due to AI or even autonomous weapons. All of these are important issues, and many of them have already caused harm, and they could cause more harm in the future. But for this segment, I'm going to focus more on the risk of advanced AI systems gaining more power and or autonomy and causing harm to humanity in the broad sense. Second, prediction is difficult, especially about the future, as the saying goes. It is even harder when the thing one is predicting hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
So consider for a moment many of the probability estimates you hear day to day. From earthquakes to car accidents to flooding, they're based on historical analyses, usually. Stuff has happened before, so you take that data, analyze it, and project it into the future.
It really is different this time.
Admittedly, the process for this is often flawed, especially for various financial projections. But for many phenomena, it works sufficiently well. Insurance estimates, for example, tend to have pretty reliable patterns, at least within short time periods. With advanced AI, though, the situation is literally unprecedented. It has not happened before. Can't really do probability estimates on non-events in the past. So the next move, you're like, well, okay, what do you do then? Would be to find something similar to compare it to. But there aren't really any good fits. There's no good reference classes, they might say. In short, the domain of risk from advanced AI doesn't easily match other domains. So to use some foundation, it's hard to make decent probability estimates without that. As such, any probability estimate is more of a guess than usual.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they have no value, these estimates. It just means they have less value than otherwise. And of course, not all guesses are necessarily equal, right? Purple monkey dishwasher. Those are words. That's not really a sentence, though.
Is what you're talking about the idea that an AI would be power hungry and therefore harm humans, or just be misguided?
Great question, Pat. There are a variety of possibilities here. When advanced AI systems become even more advanced than they are now in terms of capabilities or integration into our lives, they could cause harm in a variety of ways. One would be through accident. AI is supposed to do something and it just kind of screws up or does the wrong thing. Misuse. They could be leveraged by malicious actors to cause intentional harm in a more accelerated, devastating fashion. But there's also the risk of AI itself as an agent of sorts, with its own objectives, operating to achieve goals in a way that we didn't really intend or don't really want. Sort of this alignment problem, as they say. So all these things are possible, and I'm not going to focus on any one in particular, but the broader class of potential harm. And harm could mean, yes, millions of people suffer, billions of people suffer. Lately, some statements talk about extinction. I'm going to mention those later. So it seems like the risks are quite high compared to just, some more localized, isolated phenomena. So what to do? One could give up and do nothing. You can't find good estimates of what's going to happen, so you just don't do anything. At first glance, this may seem like a neutral move, but it isn't. Doing nothing indicates implicit agreement with the belief that there is no risk from advanced AI, because you're not going to take any action. Of course, taking no action and believing minimal risk may be a conclusion that is reached eventually, but that position should be based on reasons more than whimsy. I think people sometimes think like, oh, if you don't do anything, it's a neutral. Like, no, things are happening. They're in progress. You can see advancements happening, and neutrality is not that. So given the constraints, I think the best approach is to look for signals elsewhere across diverse domains and try to cobble together an understanding of whether there is a problem or not. Again, an indication of a problem. So in this segment, I'll discuss a few potential signals that indicate to me a concerning risk from advanced AI systems. Again, these signals are somewhat separate from the first-hand or first-order arguments for AI risk. Signal number 1. Katja Grace and Ben Weinstein-Rons had an AI impact survey of AI researchers in 2022, and they found that about half of respondents said that there was a 5 to 10% risk of AI causing human extinction or similarly permanent and severe disempowerment of the human species. Those exact words are used because those are the exact words they used. This is a very concerning result, given that most of us would not accept a 5% risk of severe harm or death in nearly any aspect of our lives, like a plane ride or a meal.
I'd like
have dinner.
I'd like a 0% risk, please.
Yes, well, that's not possible. But
Smash the computers.
like, oh, we're going to have dinner after this. 5% chance it's poisonous. Like, can we order from somewhere else?
What if it's really tasty?
Yeah, there you go. No survey is perfect, nor definitive. But the response rate seems decent at 17%, by the way. Some people said, look, only 17% of people responded. By the way, 17% is a high response rate for a lot of surveys. Most of the surveys you see in the news, especially political, it's very, very low.
Wow.
It's like 5%, 1%, unless they have like a commissioned panel on hand that they ask these things to. And all I have to say is, don't discount the survey because of a low response rate.
Were there people that gave a higher rate? Like, to me, 5 to 10 sounds a little low.
Well, there's a huge range, right?
Yeah.
So I do recommend checking the links at the show notes, trcpodcast.com.
It's a great website.
And this survey does have a nice sort of, I think, distribution. You can look at some graphs of how people answered over the range of characters, because some people said 5%, some people said 10%, some people said 0. And you get a sense of like how many per each.
Yeah.
As well, 2 questions which are similar but not the same gave slightly different answers.
Sure.
Which then is like, okay, there's something going on here, right? Mm-hmm. So that's also why you could like, well, the survey can be picked out a bit. And yes, could it be a biased sample? Of course, right? It was of AI researchers. It wasn't random people. But it was AI researchers who like actually published in AI journals. So it's not just random people.
Yeah.
Right?
But the AI researchers who actually have this concern would be more likely to respond than those that don't.
Well, yes, in terms of sampling bias. Now,
Yes.
I'm not sure about that. That's pretty hard to deduce.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
Now, people, if you survey like AI safety researchers, clearly those people are biased. But then it goes to the point of like, well, are you in AI safety accidentally? Or are you in it because you think there's a problem? And then you're in it. And then it's like, well, you're biased. Like, no, but I'm here because I already believed it. So yes, it's a bias, but you just have to take into account what you're interpreting there. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is a worthwhile thing to think about, because it doesn't have to be, say, half or almost half, because I think it was 48%. Mm-hmm. If it was 10% of researchers thought there was a 10% chance of extinction, I would still find that very concerning. That means a lot should be done to address this potential issue.
Yeah.
Oh, and just to be fair to framing effects, if I phrase that another way, like 90% chance of humanity surviving, I don't find that much more reassuring. Maybe other people do.
I feel like these researchers are maybe a lot more optimistic than me, but that's still
Well, I'm just flipping the numbers,
concerning.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's the first signal. Signal 2, and I'm going to segue with a question for my co-hosts. What would it take for you to regret your life's work?
My life's work being like some sort of professional?
Yeah, everything you've done in your career, you're like, oh, I regret what I've done. I think I made things worse.
Yeah, more harm than good to have resulted from the work I've done. Maybe that's a simple way to say it.
Toronto, do you have anything to add?
But yeah, exactly that. That I did more harm than good, and I see where you're going, Darren. But yes.
Yeah. And then the follow-up is, what would it take for you to state that publicly? I think that means you'd probably feel very strongly about it. What I'm trying to hint at.
For me to state publicly that I regret my life's work?
Yes. It probably links to thinking you saying it publicly would have some impact, right? Like otherwise, why would you do it, right?
Or be shocking in some way.
Right. Yeah, there's multiple reasons.
Yeah.
So being doubtful of and even indicating regretting one's life's work is exactly what 2 of the, this is a quote, godfathers of AI have done in the past couple months, Jeffrey Hinton and Yoshua Bengio. Mm-hmm. So to give you a sense of...
Whoa, that's
yeah,
deep.
Yeah, importance. And so Geoffrey Hinton left Google so he could speak more openly about his concerns about this stuff. And Yoshua Bengio has also recently said, like, I feel a bit concerned. And like the discussion is like, no one wants to be the next Oppenheimer. Like, this is how they're almost thinking about this. And they're, seen as famous. They're highly cited. For some context, if you have a scientific publication and you have, say, 3, 5, 8,000 citations, that's a big deal. You've really done a really good job. Several of Yoshua Bengio's have 60,000. Like, these are the the foundational work that everyone cites because you did the deep learning thing or reinforcement. And so various stuff in AI and machine learning. Mm-hmm. So these two giants said that they are possibly regretting their life's work. Does that mean anything, though? Well, to me, it's another strong signal because most people have strong incentives to not regret their life's work. We talk about bias all the time. Like, yes, I do a good job. I did a good thing. It's pretty unappealing to think, oh, all the stuff I did for 3 to 4 decades was bad. Yeah. And then to say it publicly, oh, that's even worse. Personal shame is one thing, but if you start saying it publicly, then you become perhaps the cause of the problem, which most people don't want either.
Well, in this case, their hope is that publicly stating it will reverse or, reverse the damage.
Perhaps, right, because they're concerned. Yes,
what's concerning to me is that of all the people who would understand the evolving potential of this, they're raising their hands and going, hey.
Yes, some of the most credible. Right, exactly. So I think it's interesting because, again, not almost everyone hates to admit that they're wrong, and here these people are saying it publicly and outright. Now, not everyone sees it this way. So I should mention that there are various people, easily found on the internets if you have access, that don't see this as a strong signal at all. They see Hinton and Bengio doing it for attention or money or sort of being thought of as a hero scientist. I wouldn't assign this stance a 0% chance of being correct, because nothing's zero, but I'm not convinced by the arguments marshaled in their favor. First, many people do seek fame, but these don't seem to be the types of men that would do that for their own sake. They're also already kind of famous in their community. They're later in their career, like 60s and 70s. I think they already have a decent amount of money. They're famous in the AI community. So they're only getting more fame outside the community for being foundational, creating a problem, which is not usually the fame that people want. Yeah. Being the hero who warns of the bad thing can bring about clout and status. I don't deny that, but it gives you less clout if you're the one that created the problem, right? It also only really works if there is actually a problem. So I think there's a quirky logic here. Otherwise, it would seem like a false warning to grab attention, which is worse. So even if they're trying to get virtue points for the wrong reasons, that argument relies upon the underlying signal of AI risk being a real concern.
Yeah, like if they were trying to get virtue points, and by warning about it, they avoid it, it makes it look like there was never even a problem in the first place. So they don't get that. They don't get that credit anyway. There's no real winning in this situation.
Or you could sort of marshal arguments either way on this, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the default, again, like it's people sometimes are going out of their way that in any other context, like I know a nuclear scientist, like I'm concerned about the bombs going off. Like, oh, this guy's biased. It's like, okay, maybe, because people seek attention for all sorts of things. I also want to quickly mention that this discussion is adjacent to the bulverism fallacy, covered on some episode, I can't remember which we did before, where you attack or question someone's motives instead of responding to their argument.
Sure.
Now, I say adjacent because this segment is not about the actual arguments for AI risk. It's actually discussing the motives of statements that we are assessing as signals of something. So it's not actually fallacious, this interrogation that we're doing. Just because sometimes people hear fallacies like, fallacy. You're like, no, fallacies are responding to arguments. Yeah. If you say someone is a big, dumb, stupid head, that's not an ad hominem fallacy. It's just insulting someone and being mean, maybe. Yes. Unless you're saying that as a response to an argument. Mm-hmm. Okay, signal 3. On May 30th, the Center for AI Safety released a public statement. The preamble stated, I'm going to quote the whole thing, AI experts, journalists, policymakers, and the public are increasingly discussing a broad spectrum of important and urgent risks from AI. Even so, it can be difficult to voice concerns about some of advanced AI's most severe risks. The succinct statement below aims to overcome this obstacle and open up discussion. It is also meant to create common knowledge of the growing number of experts and public figures who also take some of advanced AI's most severe risks seriously. Okay, that's the preamble. The statement itself read, quote, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. The aforementioned Geoffrey Hinton and Yoshua Bengio had signed this, but so did the CEOs of the 3 leading AI companies. Demi Hassabis of Google's DeepMind, Sam Altman of OpenAI, and Dario Amodei from Anthropic, as well as many other big names and people within those companies, and Bill Gates and many others. So what to make of this? Well, this seems like a strong signal to me when the people who are building something say that it might be very dangerous.
Yep.
In fact, I think it's useful to examine a general case. So let's imagine there is a product, not described, we'll just call it product X. The three companies that are the most advanced at making product X say that X creates a risk of extinction. As well, many other company leaders and key researchers that created the technology for X to exist also think X creates a risk of extinction. Given these data, it seems reasonable to me to update one's belief to think X could cause human extinction.
Yes.
It just so happens in this case, X is advanced AI. Another reason that this is a strong signal is that it goes against typical motivations in businesses. Here we have the product manufacturers saying that their product could cause human extinction and that this should be mitigated. It's usually the opposite. For decades, the tobacco companies said that smoking isn't harmful and even lied about this under oath. Big oils have campaigned and continue to do so sometimes against the validity of climate change. And Big Pharma usually goes out of its way to say its products are safe. Most companies seek less regulation, not more. Again, no arguments being analyzed, but a strong signal nonetheless. Now, some of you may think if these AI CEOs really meant what they agreed to publicly, they would stop building these systems. What are you doing then, right?
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to this stance, and it isn't a knockdown. It just hints at how complicated this whole space is. And I'm actually going to cover this in a future segment. Most of these companies think AI can do great things if it's built safely, and they're worried others will build systems that are less safe than they will.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's logical.
Well, it is if you are charitable and believe them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so more regulations could increase overall safety, and it benefits everyone without someone getting too far ahead. Admittedly, that's only a surface level response. Again, you'll have to wait for a future segment. But all that to say is that people say publicly that their product could cause human extinction. It seems to be some strong signal.
I mean, you think you've opened the Pandora's box at this point, trying to figure out ways to regulate as opposed to stop doing it altogether. I don't see that. I don't see it working, trying to put a stop to it, personally.
Well, that's another big problem or concern. I guess one thing at a time to accept that there might be a problem.
Like you could have the United States could decide to completely abandon AI research and it wouldn't stop it, right? Like
right.
It's
That's
global,
you said that more eloquently than I did.
Well, true, but they're far ahead, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So in a way, what I'm also hinting at, I won't be veiled about this, is the notion of cognitive humility, which is a recurring theme on our podcast, that maybe we don't know as much as we think we do. And you could imagine other domains, whether it's like biomedical research or something like technological with nanotechnology. If some researcher said something about that, I think most people would have no opinion about it, right? Because they just wouldn't have enough technical background. Like, what do they know? And so again, you should ask for arguments, because to believe something without any arguments or reasons is not really a great idea. But in the meantime, if the people who are very close to this say this could be a risk, why wouldn't you update to think, well, maybe it's a risk? It's just interesting to me, like, oh, don't they have more knowledge than the person who often disagrees with them?
Or at least consider it for a moment.
Right, exactly. I started preparing this segment around June 13th, 14th, and then we're recording it on June 20th. And just in those days, between when I sort of finished several days ago and now this recording, there was a new headline from CNN. And this is a quote: 34% of CEOs said AI could potentially destroy humanity in 10 years, and 8% said that could happen in 5 years. Surveys included responses from 119 CEOs from a cross-section of businesses, including Walmart, Coca-Cola, and leaders of IT companies. I don't think this is as strong a signal, right? Language matters, could potentially destroy humanity, could happen in 5 years. That's a very, qualified language. That said, the fact that someone would say that at all, right? Yeah. It's not nothing. And the fact that they're not tech CEOs, I think that's interesting for its own right. Like, again, it's not a strong data point, but it's one. And is it really independent? Well, they're probably just listening to the other CEOs, right? So yeah, I want to acknowledge that these signals, all the ones I've discussed, are not fully independent of each other, especially 2 and 3. And that's one of the reasons I didn't include a fourth signal, which is a suggestion for a 6-month pause on training AI models more powerful than GPT-4. And of course, there could have been other signals focusing on the opposite understanding, like the counter signals of how some key researchers disagree with all these extinction and harm to humanity concerns, and how there is currently no authoritative report by the Royal Society or the UN or the OECD stating that the harm from AI is, problematic. Usually people find these reports carrying some weight. But I don't think that's, should be discounted just because of those things. Also, this second counter signal is stronger but those organizations are slow moving, and the explosion of AI only happened in the past 6 months, right? So I don't think key organizations not having statements or reports on this issue is definitive in one way or another. Since I prepared those words, though, the UN Secretary General said, quote, "Alarm bells over AI are deafening, and they are loudest from the developers who designed it. The experts have called upon the world to act, declaring it an existential threat to humanity." And this is also the difficulty of covering anything AI related.
Yep.
You say something, and then even if it's a week before you hear it, listener, it's sort of like, what? No, that's out of date. Someone already said that thing. So time and again, like, well, why wouldn't we see this signal? And then it happens by the time the podcast comes out. Now, again, that's not a report from the UN, but it is, again, a signal in that direction. Okay. As for the first supposed countersignal, it's important to acknowledge that there is disagreement among experts on the severity and timelines of the risk of advanced AI. This is widespread in many cases, but how many experts do you need to take the issue seriously? This is, I think, a worthwhile question for any issue. I'm not suggesting for the strong case, where there's definitely going to be a problem from AI, but for the weaker case, where there's enough of a risk, say there's a 10% chance of AI causing harm to humanity, to drive action to mitigate those risks. More specifically, when people hear that Geoffrey Hinton and Yoshua Bengio are concerned, but Jan LeCun, who's like the third godfather of AI, is not, some people seem to think this kind of nullifies the concern. I disagree. I think it's noteworthy and suggest we should explore why there's a difference. But like 2 out of 3 key figures is enough for me to be concerned. Yeah. For me, 1 out of 3 is enough. I don't need all 3. It makes me think like, well, do you need like all the dentists to recommend the same toothpaste? No.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Make my choice so much easier.
Finally, you'd know which one to pick.
It'd be like, don't use toothpaste. Doesn't do anything.
Well, what if 1 out of 5 dentists said that toothpaste might kill you, and they helped develop the toothpaste? Right? Like, there's a dentist at Crest is like, look, I helped build it. There's a 20% chance it's going to kill us all. You're like, that guy's, no, why would we listen to him? Anyway, I think it's a statement worth taking seriously and investigating further. So, in summary, even without knowing the details of how advanced AI might be a threat to humanity, I think we have some strong signals that it might be. Yes. These include surveys of researchers, public declarations from key figures saying that they regret their life's work, and key CEOs and figures in the AI field showing they agree with a clear statement about AI risk of extinction needing to be a global priority. We can update our estimates of concern while we take the next step of seeking evidence and arguments for why everyone is so concerned.
Cheery segment there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, cheery.
Yeah, that was, at one point I forgot I was on the show and I was listening to it. I'm like, this podcast is great.
Pretty good.
That's great. You should leave us a review on iTunes.
5-star. Don't leave us a review.
Yeah, she's like 4.5.
We don't want to hear from you.
I thought the 3 male hosts were childish. Oh, Christina. Now we turn to Pat for another game of Name That.
All right, here we go with everyone's favorite, mostly guessing game, Name That. Today we play another edition of the pain in the butt to research, but always fun to play, Spot the Fake.
Woo!
Yes.
We have 5 questions, no tiebreaker. If we're tied after 5 questions, we'll end that way. For each question, I will give you 4 so-called facts. 3 are true, 1 is not, and I'll ask you to spot the fake. I've randomly determined our starting order and will rotate. Question number 1. Christina, you're up. Spot the fake. Is it A, Captain Crunch's full name is Horatio Magellan Crunch? Or B, Walmart sells more bananas than any other single item they have in stock? Or C, in Argentina, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego is called Pursuit of the Red Rebellious Bird? Or D, sunsets on Mars are blue?
Oh, man. I don't know why, but I have some, maybe it's the weird history timeline stuff and the weird history food stuff I watch. I feel like A is true. Mr. Captain Crunch. I'm going to go with D, is the fake.
All right. Christina chooses Sunsets on Mars. Next is Darren.
Again, Pat, good job. All these are just plausible enough. I'll pick A as fake.
All right. Darren goes with Captain Crunch. And last is Adam.
What was C again?
In Argentina, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego is called In Pursuit of the Red Rebellious Bird?
I think this Mars one is real just because the atmosphere is thinner and it's going to be thicker at sunset. So it evens out. I think this... I guess the Captain Crunch one. Maybe that's fake. No way.
All right, Adam agrees with Darren about Captain Crunch. Sunsets on Mars are blue as a result of the fine dust that is always present.
Oh, cool.
Walmart sells more than 1 billion pounds of bananas each year. Captain Crunch's full name is Horatio Magellan Crunch.
Told you guys.
Carmen Sandiego is made up.
Huh.
I had a feeling about that one, but
So I don't think we get to have an "I told you so" from someone who also got it wrong.
No kidding.
I got 2 of the 3 right ones right.
I did not
got
choose
wrong.
that one.
In the answer.
I want to investigate this Mars thing, exactly why that works that way.
Question number 2. Darren, spot the fake. Is it A, Nebraska's official state slogan is Nebraska? Honestly, it's not for everyone.
Oh, my.
B, NERF is an acronym for Non-Expanding Recreational Foam. Or C, tyromancy is the practice of trying to predict the future with cheese.
Tyro?
Tyromancy.
Okay.
Or D, shoe stores used to use X-ray machines called fluoroscopes to measure foot size before the risks of X-rays were fully understood.
Okay, we got cheese, feet, and what were the other 2?
Nebraska and NERF.
Oh, yeah. All right, I feel like I want it to be, well, would Nebraska really name itself that? That seems very self-deprecating. Tyromancy.
Going with
All right,
C.
Darren goes with tyromancy. C. Next is Adam.
Can you just run through them real quick?
Yeah, Nebraska's official state slogan is Nebraska, honestly, it's not for everyone. NERF is an acronym for Non-Expanding Recreational Foam. Tyromancy is the practice of trying to predict the future with cheese. And shoe stores used to use X-ray machines.
I think the Nerf one is fake because if you say it with Dart, it sounds weird. Maybe that's silly, but that's my guess.
All right, Adam goes with B, NERF. Lastly, Christina.
I believe D is true. I remember reading something about that. C sounds absolutely ridiculous. So ridiculous it could be true. I'm going to say A is the fake.
That was my other choice. I'm curious now.
Throw us off.
All right,
Broach.
Christina goes with Nebraska. Tyromancy is the practice of trying to predict the future with cheese. Nebraska's official state slogan is Nebraska, honestly, it's not for everyone. Shoe stores did use X-ray machines.
Yeah.
The NERF acronym is made up.
Ha. Excellent.
That was my second choice.
I was aware the foot thing was true as well. I was like, yeah, we'll just use X-rays. Why not?
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
And so few superheroes. Very disappointing.
All right, question number 3, Adam, spot the fake. Is it A, about 28% of people on the autism spectrum are left-handed, compared to 10% in the general population? Or B, Johnny Depp's real first name is Alan? Or C, in Japan, Domino's started testing pizza delivery via reindeer in 2016. Or D, the University of Minnesota is older than Minnesota, the state.
I think the deer one, the reindeer one, is fake. Hilarious, but so absurd.
All right, Adam goes with the reindeer. Next is Christina.
Absurd is the right word. I'm going to say B is fake. Johnny Depp.
All right, Christina goes with Johnny Depp, and the last is Darren.
I will say D. I want the reindeer thing to be true.
So Darren goes with the University of Minnesota. The left-handed and neural diversity link is true.
Weird.
Japan did start testing pizza delivery with reindeer.
What the hell?
Minnesota is older than the state of Minnesota.
Finally.
Johnny Depp's first name is John. Question number 4. Christina, spot the fake. Is it A, the back pockets on Levi's jeans were originally patches to help prevent holes in the seat area? Miners would rip the top seam of the patch to carry tools and other items. Or B, the shortest war in history lasted 38 minutes. Or C, the iconic egg chamber scene in the movie Alien was created using lasers borrowed from the rock band The Who. The band was rehearsing their laser show on a soundstage next to Ridley Scott's set. Or D, there is a phenomenon called phantom vibration syndrome. It is the perception that one's mobile phone is vibrating or ringing even when it isn't.
I think C is BS. Although that would be really fun if it was true.
All right, Christina goes with The Who lending lasers to the set of Alien.
Lasers. Sharks with freaking lasers on their heads.
Next is Darren.
Please remind me what A was, Pat.
Back pockets on Levi's jeans.
Why not? I'll go with that one.
All right, Darren goes with the Levi's jeans. And lastly, Adam.
The pocket thing sounds true.
Mm-hmm.
The alien laser sounds true. D was what?
Phantom vibration syndrome.
I have felt the phantom vibrations of my phone not ringing. So I don't even remember what B is, but I'm going with B because the other three sound so true.
All right, Adam goes with the shortest war. The Anglo-Zanzibar War lasted 38 minutes. Phantom vibration syndrome is a thing. Ridley Scott did borrow The Who's laser gear.
Damn.
The back pockets on Levi's is made up.
Does this mean we're all tied?
So going into the last question, I have Darren with 1, Adam with 1, and Christina with 1.
Oh,
Ooh, anybody's game.
Oh, great. So we can't pick the same thing.
Well, you could. I think. Do I have to go first too?
Question number 5, Darren, spot the fake. Is it A, the youngest person to achieve nuclear fusion was 12 years old?
What the hell?
You mean personally? They did it themselves inside?
No, I mean they achieved it on some sort of a desktop.
It's like teenage Mr. Manhattan.
Yes, exactly.
B, there is a Swiss company that takes cremated human remains and compresses them into diamonds. Or C, coffee is called a cup of Joe because Joe DiMaggio did very popular ads for the Folgers Coffee Company. Or D, there is a 12-step program for people who do not earn enough money to meet their needs called Under Earners Anonymous.
These are all ridiculous. A 12-year-old created fusion like through a computer? Well, I don't understand how this makes sense.
Actually did nuclear fusion.
Okay, I'm going with a 12-year-old. It makes no sense to me.
Okay, Darren goes with the 12-year-old. Next is Adam.
Okay, nuclear fusion. Sure, you just need to compress a bunch of something.
Yeah. Just like you do.
Just a little
Like
pressure,
you
right? The diamond thing's got to be true. What were C and D?
Cup of Joe coffee and 12-step program for under earners.
Okay. Cup of Joe sounds believable. I wasn't paying attention back then. So I say these 12-step program is fake.
All right. Adam goes with the 12-step program. Lastly, Christina.
well, I gotta go with something different. I don't remember Joe DiMaggio doing Folgers commercials. But I'm trying to figure out why else would you call a cup of coffee a cup of Joe? But I'm going to go with that just to have a different answer. C.
All right. Christina goes with C. 12-year-old Jackson Oswald is the youngest person to achieve nuclear fusion. There is a 12-step program called Under Earners Anonymous. A Swiss company does compress human remains into diamonds. There are a number of stories about why coffee is called a cup of Joe, but Joe DiMaggio has nothing to do with any of them.
Yes.
So congratulations, Christina is your winner.
Woo!
Congrats. And thanks for joining us once again, listeners. I talked to you about uncertainty and AI risk and why there might be good reasons to update towards the possibility of AI causing harm to humanity. And then we had a wonderful game of Spot the Fake where Christina bested us all.
Damn straight.
Until next time, think better to act better.
Peace out, cuboids.
Stay classy, not smartassy.
We'll talk to you soon, everyone.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at @TRC_podcast.